What's going on, y'all? In this video, I am going to share everything that I have learned on the water about the Hobie Outback after 2 full years of fishing in it. I'm going to talk about all the important features specifically for fishing. I'm going to talk about a handful of things that I've broken, and I'm also going to talk about getting my warranty replacement kayak and my thoughts on the power pole micro anchor as well. Let's quit wasting time and let's get into it. One of the many features that led me to the Hobie Outback in the first place is its patented Mirage Drive 180 with the kick-up fins. One of the things that is extremely important to me is having the ability to effortlessly cover a lot of water while also having the means to chase fish in extremely shallow areas. I would also say it's equally important to me not having to worry about a pedal drive system that can't take the bumps and scrapes along the way. With the Outback, it is mostly worry-free because I can get into some really shallow areas with the kick-up fins, which, as their name state, kick up when they make contact with a hard surface. With the kick-up feature, you don't have to worry about breaking a prop or damaging a motor. And even when you're in a really shallow water area with the fins spread wide open, you still have the ability to flutter kick the fins to keep moving in just inches of water. It's because of these fins I've been able to catch fish in some really cool areas and see some extraordinary places. Now, one of the things I have found with the fins is that they struggle in really dense weeds and they essentially jam up. But the nice thing is you can pop the drive straight up and detangle the fins and put it right back in a matter of seconds. Sometimes, depending on the situation, I briefly switch from fins to paddle, which the Outback makes super easy with the paddle and bungee system. Now, while it is easy to access, one nitpick I do have with the bungee holder is that I do a lot of my work on the fish right next to the bungee, and as you might imagine, I've had several treble hooks caught in the bungee, so that can be frustrating at times, and I do wish there was a different mechanism which came with the Outback. Overall, the kickback fins are insanely great, but to keep this review completely transparent, I did unfortunately break off a fin in the water. More specifically, I broke off the Mirage Drive 180 boom kick-up. I will say it was a strange situation and I don't foresee it ever happening again. But in my situation, what happened was the back of my second fin got caught on a rock backwards so it couldn't kick up. And because there was a strong current at the time, the base of the fin broke and I lost my back fin entirely. Now, because of this, I'm probably one of the few people who can say that they've used a Mirage Drive with just one fin, and it's really incredible how strong it even was with just one fin, and I think that's really a testament to how powerful and well designed the fins are in the first place. Now, the last thing I want to add to the Mirage Drive is the foot pedal itself. The pedal should stand in an upright position, which is held by a 1/8 inch bungee. After 2 years of use, the bungee on my left foot pedal finally broke and I had to replace it. Unlike my other accidents, this one is one of those maintenance items I kind of expected to happen over time, and with a few tools around the garage, I was able to replace it in about an hour. Alright, the next topic I want to talk about is the rudder system. In my experience, the dual rudder control system is extremely easy to use. Because it's dual, you have the option to use it with either hand, which makes it extremely convenient for basic navigation or handling current. What also makes this system great is that the controls act independently with the rudder. Unfortunately for me, the rudder, or more specifically the right side rudder control cord, broke on me. Because they act independently of one another, I was able to use the left control, so you do technically have a backup if that were to happen to you out on the water. Now, I will say this particular setback was a harder one for me to fix, so I ended up having my cord replaced by my dealer, and they seemed to think that there was something sharp inside the tube where the cord is kept and fed through, which cut the cord over time, which they have never seen that before, so I wouldn't expect that to be an issue for everyone. That just seemed to be a unique problem for my kayak. Now, as far as the rudder itself, I haven't had any issues so far. Like the kick-up fins, the rudder can also fold up to avoid dragging the bottom and quickly assist in making important maneuvers. I do think the Outback's turn radius is not the best on the market, but with experience on the water, you can make relatively sharp turns. As we move to the back of the kayak, one of the features I like about the Outback was that it was specifically designed for the power pole micro anchor. The Hobie Outback comes with 4 inserts specifically designed for the power pole base. On my first Outback, which I'll explain towards the end of the video, one of my inserts was about 1/8 of an inch offset, which meant I couldn't secure the base of the anchor to the kayak. What we ended up doing was slightly widening the open on the base, which allowed the off-centered screw enough room to fit into the inserts. On my second Outback, I didn't have any installation issues at all, and the inserts were perfectly aligned. If you were to ask me, I think the power pole system has been well worth the money and is more valuable than any other electronic I can mount to this kayak. With the push of a button, I can drop the pole in current to hold a position or keep a spot right after I catch a fish. It's also very beneficial in those windy conditions, and the pole can also make it easy if you want to get a quick exit out of your kayak and leave it in the water. In over 2 years, I haven't had any issues with the pole not holding a spot. A bonus with the pole is that the pole itself can also serve to help get you in the kayak from land to water or help you balance the vessel. As for the balance of the pole itself, after installing both the micro anchor and the pole, I did notice a slight change in balance and stability in the kayak. I would say there's a very subtle wobble when the pole is at its peak, and it can be felt the most when standing.
That is a big catfish, and oh my gosh, there's a huge muskie underneath this catfish.
Next, and this one's a little bit embarrassing for me, but when you're fishing with a power pole, make sure you're paying attention to your surroundings because, well, you might get caught in a tree. Unlike a rod, the pole is not going to bend, and you could get stuck like I did in this clip. An additional learning lesson here is that you're also more likely to fall out of the kayak rather than flipping the kayak altogether, which I think is of significant value. The last thing I want to add to the power pole topic is the power source. You can either connect it to an external battery or you can purchase the battery pack made for the micro anchor. For practical reasons, I have the anchor system connected to the battery pack, and I haven't had any issues with the performance of the battery. Now, with that said, I did once ram into a rock and my battery pack actually came loose, so I lost power to the anchor, which put me in a compromised position, so I had to get out of the water, which isn't always doable, and I had to snap the battery back in place. Because of the design, the battery came loose because the battery is only held in place by 4 small clips, which probably is my only critique of the power pole system altogether. Alright, another feature I value in a fishing kayak is a platform big enough for me to comfortably and quietly stand on. At 6 foot over 200 pounds, the Outback has impressively done that for me. In general, I do think the deck and EVA pads are relatively narrow, and the H-rail forces me into a narrow stance, but with that said, I still find standing on the Outback to be comfortable for long periods of time, and along with the ability to shift my weight to make full body casts and easily go from standing to sitting and vice versa. As for the whole construction of the Outback, it is a roto-molded polyethylene. The hull is built strong, but also has the ability to be agile in the water. A rigged Outback will weigh around 100 pounds. My Outback weighs a little bit more with the addition of a power pole, a fully loaded Yak Attack black pack, multiple poles, accessories, filming equipment, nets, etc. I would say that the Outback will be a challenge for most people to handle single-handedly, and if you're fishing solo, I would definitely look into getting a cart system for much easier transportation. The Outback does come with a front ergonomic handle, and the handle is nice, especially guiding a cart or pulling the kayak through the water. Now, one thing I will say is that over the 2 years, I have started to notice a subtle fray on the cord of the handle, which I will need to replace in the future. The final item I'm going to touch on is my warranty replacement kayak. After about 1.5 years of use, I began to start noticing a few small cracks below the back seat stands and next to my molded cup holders. Obviously, this was something of real concern, so I reached out to my dealer and they assisted me in getting a replacement kayak. I'm not totally sure why the cracks showed up in the first place. Perhaps when they molded my kayak, those spots were thinner in those areas, but whatever the reason is, the Outback shouldn't have cracked like that, especially in my time frame. In general, I don't think my original kayak is what most people experience. I think mine is a little bit of an outlier. With all that said, I'm genuinely impressed that Hobie replaced the entire hull with no problems. To me, that means they really believe in their product and stand behind the products that they make. After 2 full years of fishing out of the Hobie Outback, I am very well pleased with its performance. Of course, I'm also disappointed with a few of the parts I had to replace along the way, but I think that's what you get with the Hobie Outback. The Hobie Outback is called the SUV of kayaks for a good reason. You're going to be able to do everything on the water, but in order to do that, it requires a lot of moving pieces to make it happen, and the Outback is simply not your basic and average kayak. It has a lot of moving parts which need to be cared for and looked after. I hope this video helped you learn a little bit more about the Hobie Outback. If you have any questions or anything you want to add about your own Outback experience that I didn't mention in this video, leave those down in the comments below. As always, keep slinging.